All right, while we wait, tonight it seems like it's a hot topic, people pleasing and saying no and all these things. All right. If you have to just type in the chat box for me, what do you think a people pleaser is? If you hear the word people pleaser, what comes to mind? Because I've heard that in my practice this month a lot, actually, and that's why I was asking about the subject. So if you have a people pleaser, what does that mean when that word comes up for you? You can just type in the chat box. Oh, Joni, hi. Okay, I'll just check in the chat box. So if you have to imagine what a people pleaser is, what would that be? Okay, let's see, Alida. When you always say yes to others and actually hurting yourself by doing so, okay. So saying yes to others is usually saying no to yourself. And that's usually a nightmare. Okay. And Yolanda, ek dink dis iemand wat aanvaarding van ander soek. Okay, so people pleaser is looking for acceptance. Yeah, it's on the right track. So they want acceptance. En nou almal gelukkig, maak nie saak of dit jou benadeel nie. Yep. All right. So keeping everybody happy, always saying yes instead of saying no. So when we think people pleasing, that's the idea we get. All right. The biggest thing is not saying no. People say they can't say no, but that's an absolute. Okay. If I tell you, okay, actually, one of my clients was sitting here and she said, no, I can't say no. And I said, oh, well, then take off all your clothes and go run around the plot and see what these people think about you. And she said, no. And I say, so you see, the problem is not about saying no. It's about in the situations that you find yourself in, the repercussions that you think is going to happen when you say no. So it's not about not saying no. That's an absolute, and nothing happens totally, absolutely always the same. So when people say they cannot ever say no, it's not true. Okay. There are certain things that you can say no to, and there are certain things that you automatically say no to. And that is important to understand. So it's not really about not saying no, it's about saying no in the right circumstances. Now, what would be the fear surrounding no? Okay, if people say they can't say no, there's usually a repercussion to the no. When somebody accepts or receives a no, there's usually something that happens after the no. That can be conflict, that can be rejection, okay? It can be any type of thing that somebody says no to someone else, there's always a repercussion. And I think that is where the problem comes in. Because if you can say yes to everybody else, but you say no to yourself, believe it or not, the universe is going to put you in situations where you are forced to take a break or forced to shut down or forced to collapse because it is not sustainable saying yes to everybody. I don't know if you guys, there wasn't, when was this movie released? It's called Yes Man. I think Drew Carey played in it. And he always said yes to everything. That was actually quite a nice movie. It showed you exactly what the problem is with saying yes to everything and no to nothing. Okay, because then life becomes very, very challenging and you lose yourself. All right. So when we say no, what is a nice way of saying no? Sometimes people get so upset that they say no in rude ways, and then there's conflict that can happen. Just no, no, and just no, and no. So you're trying to say no in rude ways, but that's not the idea. You can say thank you, but no thank you. You can say I don't have the capacity for this right now. You can say I don't have the energy for this right now. You can say I would have if I could have, but I just cannot. Those are all ways of saying no and setting up boundaries. And it's actually redundant to mention boundaries because when you say no and when you stop people pleasing, that's boundaries that you are creating. Right. So the word boundaries gets thrown around a lot, but if you can say no to someone and yes to yourself, which is a very difficult thing to do because when we are children, we are forced to say yes to things that we do not want to do. Okay. You have to go to school, you have to get an education, you have to have manners, you have to have all these, have to have, and then we start going crazy and we don't learn how to say no. All right, because if we cannot say no when we are young, how the hell are we going to do it when we get older? And then some people fall off the bandwagon and they say no to everything and they blame everybody else in everybody's situation. There's this blame, name, shame going on. So when we say no, we are establishing boundaries in effect. And it is fascinating because if you just observe nature, we are all part of nature. There's no denying it. You are part of nature. If we lose our 6 inches of soil across the planet, we will all die very soon. There'll be nothing sustaining us. And I saw a geographical map of wolf packs. that don't overlap. These wolf packs, they respected each other's boundaries. And it's fascinating to see how they actually respect each other's boundaries. The bigger wolf pack obviously they've covered more area. Smaller wolf packs covered less area, but they stayed in their different areas. And I thought that is quite amazing. If wolf packs can do that, what do we humans do? All right. For instance, people that show up at your house unannounced, because their family, their friends, they can just allow to show up, right? That one is interesting because if people just show up and invade your space in the Western lifestyle, we just accept it as true. It's like, well, you're allowed to just come in and you're allowed to show up anytime you wish. Yeah, to a degree, it is true, but that's also a boundary breaking effect that it has. There's a book called Born to Run. And in this Born to Run, I think it's called the Taramahura clan. They've got the weird name. But these guys run ultra marathons as if it's nothing. That's part of their culture. But another thing that's part of their culture, the guy that wrote the book would go up to this person's living space that's in the clan, and he would stand there and he'd wait. They must tell him he must wait until that person's ready to come out, say hello, how are you? Turns around, walks away. That was a good conversation. Then you have to wait again for them to actually start engaging. And I thought, wow, imagine we did this in the Western world. Somebody comes up to your door, you say, wait. And then you go out, you say, nice to meet you. And you go back. And then you don't know how long you're going to wait there for until you finish the conversation. But they were so strict on their personal space and their boundaries. That is what they did. And that to me was a big eye opener. It's like, wow, there are people living like that. They've got these boundaries. It's okay. You're not allowed in my space. Doesn't mean I'm rude to you. Doesn't mean I don't wish you well. It's just, this is my space. What are you doing here? I didn't invite you to my space. All right. Now, if we talk about saying no, there are different levels of saying no. Are you saying no to financial things? Are you saying no to physical things? Are you saying no to mental things? Are you saying no to energetic boundaries? There are a lot of things that we have to look at here, because people say no is just no, but it's not how it works, unfortunately. There are lots of different levels in life and lots of different things around life. So we've got different energetic structures. We've got the different mental structures, social structures, physical structures. So the first important thing to say no to, and that you must try and say no to if you want to have more peace, is your physical boundaries. Because physically, we need space. Okay. I love Sadhguru because he mentioned it a lot. He said if he puts you in a 4 meter by 4 meter cage, you'll get bored very quickly. If he triples the space of the cage, you'll be able to move around, but you'll get bored very quickly. If it's 100 meter by 100 meter space, you won't get bored as quickly, but eventually you'll get bored of the area because we are trying to expand. We are trying to explore. We are trying to, we're exploratory creatures. That's human nature. We want to explore so many different things. Okay. So now, if you do not create boundaries for you while you are exploring, what do you think happens to your energy? Your energy is going to be drained. You're going to feel not good enough. You're going to feel depressed. You feel like you want to take yourself out, overwhelmed. And it's fascinating because it's amazing what people say yes to. Now, in the hypnosis world, in the subconscious realm, there's a rule of the mind that is important to understand when we try and create boundaries. It is called the yes set principle, right? If you act upon a suggestion, in other words, if you say yes to something small, the opposition to recurring suggestions will be less. And a lot of people know this. If you say, please just do this little thing for me, then the next time you ask the question, that little thing becomes a bigger thing. Then the next time that bigger thing becomes an even bigger thing. And it's very difficult for your subconscious mind to say no once you've agreed to something small. For instance, you've got a neighbor. Neighbor doesn't have a car. Oh, please just take me to the shop quickly. Okay, yes, let's go. You take your time, you go to the shop. And this is actually a physical example of one of my clients. Okay, so neighbor doesn't have a car. Neighbor gets the person to take her to the shops. And then it starts, okay, but now that you've taken me to the shops, help me to pack out the groceries. Oh, it's now I must go to the doctor. Oh, now I must go to my family. Now I must go, because you said yes for that little bit of journey just to the doctor. Now you keep on saying yes to next things. And people will take advantage of it. Whether they do it on purpose or not, it happens. So you must be very careful what you say yes to. Right. Now, coming to mental space. If somebody is asking you questions the whole time, they want to talk to you the whole time, and now you must answer. It's very funny to me that people who ask questions think that the question demands an answer. It does not one bit. Okay, you can ask as many questions if you want. The person who's answering the question doesn't need or is not obliged to answer the question. And I've started playing with that a lot when people say, how are you? I say, I don't want to answer the question. I don't have to. And they look at me as if I'm crazy. And it's like, what? I don't know, make confused. Right. But there is method in the madness. I want to see how people react when they don't get the feedback that they require, when they don't get the answer that they demand. What is the reaction? Okay. And you can tell a lot by people about people by what they do. People who manipulate, people who want to manipulate. If you set boundaries, they're going to react. They're going to throw tantrums. They're going to shout. They're going to scream. They're going to blame you, name, shame, whatever they're going to do. They're going to do it. Okay, but that's just manipulative tactics. If people respect you and you put in healthy boundaries, they won't care. They'll understand. And they'll have an open discussion, acceptance toward it. Now, in the realm, it's funny because in the realm of business and work and responsibilities, it's very difficult sometimes to say no. For instance, if your child's sick, are you going to say, no, I'm not going to look after you? Okay, there's no way, right? You're obviously going to say yes to that. But when it comes to roles and responsibilities, you must be clear on what your role is and what your responsibilities are. If you're clear on what your role is and what your responsibilities are, then it's way easier to say no. For instance, if you're a teacher and somebody asks you to do surgery, you're not going to say, okay, I'm going to do surgery. You know your role as a teacher. That's what you were doing. That's what your skill set is. You're not going to do surgery on somebody. It's a weird example, but that's sort of the example I want to try and bring across. If you are clear on what your roles and responsibilities are in an organization, in a relationship, in whatever, then it's very easy to say no. And then you can create healthy boundaries by doing that. There is, I love this poem. Actually, it's if you look over my shoulder, it's there. Somebody printed it for me. Somebody in this call, so thank you very much. It's very nice. But there's a poem by Uriah Mountain Dreamer called The Invitation. And one sentence in there says, can you disappoint another to be true to yourself? Right, that's a good question to ask yourself. Where can I disappoint people but be true to myself? And then what conflict will that make? What conflict will arise from that? And it's crucial that you understand what you do with that, because then your mind can go, okay, thank you, but no thank you. Right. If you struggle with it, if you struggle to say no to people, it's like anything. People say, but I struggle. I'm like, yes, but it takes practice. Right. People say, oh, I struggle to lose weight. I struggle to become fit. It's like, are you training? Are you doing a healthy diet? Yeah, but that's difficult. I'm like, same thing is difficult with setting boundaries. Same thing is difficult with learning how to say no. If you haven't done it all your life, you're going to have to practice it. And who do we practice it on? Everybody around you. Practical example. I had to go pick up stuff this afternoon and I quickly had to draw money. And as I drew money, it's very quiet at the center where I was. And there was this guy standing there and he looked a bit suspicious. And I looked at him and I'm like, okay, interesting. And I walked behind him. As I walked behind him, he turned around and said, oh, sir, please, I want to. I'm like, no. He's like, no, but I just want to. I'm like, no. And I kept on walking. And his face was like, okay. There are places where you can practice saying no, because you just know no means no. You don't have to go haywire and crazy and practice no, saying no to everybody, because that will happen if you feel overwhelmed. That will happen if you want to push everybody away. But in this instance, you can practice no a lot of the times with so many people. And be very careful, because on the subconscious level, I hear people, yeah, if I could, I would do it. I also ask them, so if I ask you for 5 million rand, can you give me 5 million rand now? And they go, no, I would if I had it. I'm like, be very careful. If you say you would if you had it, that's also saying no. It's just a no. Stick with the reality of the realism of the situation. You don't have it, so it's okay. Say no. You're allowed to say no. Okay. When it comes to loved ones, it's not an easy conversation to have. Okay, because if you care about somebody, you obviously feel you want to do the best for them and you want to do everything for them, but they are still people and you are still a person. If you have to sacrifice and compromise and lose yourself and energetically drain yourself, that's not love, not even close. All right, so that's something that I've dealt with a lot in my practice, where people think they love someone so they can sacrifice their whole being for someone. If you love somebody, would you like them to sacrifice themselves for you? There's no way. Okay, that doesn't make sense. It's like, okay, go jump in the fire or sacrifice or just drain yourself for me because I love you. That doesn't make sense. Okay, and that's a big part of the conflict that arises when people try to say no. Coming back to the universal thing, when people say no to themselves, but yes to other people, right? If you are created as a unique individual on this planet, right? You've got your unique functioning, you've got your unique skills, unique abilities, and you keep on suppressing those to please other people, to please societal structures, to live outside value systems that are not your own. And it may sound weird, but this very afternoon, I got a message from somebody that is going through this whole process. Okay. They never wanted to listen to themselves or respect their body or say no. It was always just push, 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 push. And now they are forced to take 3 months off doing absolutely nothing because they had surgery and they will probably die if they don't take care of themselves. It's very dangerous. Okay. So if you keep on saying yes to everybody else but no to yourself, unfortunately, this bloody universe is alive and well. And it goes, okay, then we are going to quickly create a situation where you are forced to say no to everybody else and yes to yourself. And what that shows up is very different in the form of illness, sickness, whatever that is. Okay, there comes a time where you say, okay, but I have to say no to the world, yes to myself. All right. So that is just a weird way of looking at it, but I cannot deny that that exists, especially after all these years working with people and checking what happens in the background. And when you ask people on a subconscious level if that's true, they see it. They understand it. It is a thing that happens for them. Okay, and that I like. Right. Okay, Alira, or when family misuse your kindness and overstep boundaries that they feel it's their right. And when you take back gate keys to protect your own personal space, it ends up a news family feud. Of course it will. You set a precedent. If you keep on saying yes to people, you know what a precedent is. You set a precedent, and that precedent to change it is a nightmare. But it's a good thing that it's starting to change. Right. Because if you don't change it, nobody else will. And like I said, people will either accept it or they won't. Okay. Now, another thing. So that's the mental and physical level. Energetic level. No, not a lot of people are aware of their own energies, but we do have it in our language. It's like, oh, this person has a bad vibe. Oh, I don't get a good vibe from this place. Oh, I don't feel what the hell is that vibe? That vibe is an energetic feedback. Okay, you hear so many people talk about it and they say, but I don't have energy. I don't understand energy. I'm like, what were the words you just used? No, this person doesn't vibe. This person feels off. This person, I'm like, okay, those vibes and feelings, what do you think those are? That's an energetic component coming back to you and explain to you what is happening. Right. So if somebody is draining your energy and you feel it, if somebody is in that state of mind and you keep on going into their space or accept stuff from them or open yourself up to them, you are doing yourself an injustice. And a lot of people are not aware of that one. Okay, but energetically sound people will actually bolster your energy, not drain it. And it's funny because most people I sit here, I've had so many people say, oh, my partner is draining. I'm like, okay, wait a minute. How long has it been like that? No, years and years and years. I'm like, and you've not done anything about it. No. And I'm like, okay, but then let's take a step back and go find out where the problem is. Is it you or is it the partner? Is it your perception of your partner or is it you that says yes to the world? You don't have energy left for your partner. There's a good distinction to make. Okay, so it's important to understand what you do and how you do it with your energetic levels. Right. Saying no is not that difficult if you practice. And most of the time, well, most of us cannot say no without a reason for the no. Like, oh, do you want to come to this place? No. That's not usually happens. It's like, oh no, I can't. I have to do this and this. Oh no, I don't. I have other obligations. Oh no, I just say no. Can't make it. That's it. Okay. You don't have to explain too much when you say no. It is expected because so many people do it. And you will be amazed the reaction of people when you say no. I've played with this a lot, and in my family, when was this? Beginning of the year, end of last year, there was a family death, and one of the members, I don't know, it's married family, married on family, and this woman is very prying. She always she's in everybody's space and she's trying to manipulate. And she looks at me and she said something and she was trying to fish. And I just went, no. Her face was like, boop, blank, because now what? I didn't give her feedback. I didn't explain. She wanted me to explain so she could take the explanation and carry on further with the discussion. I just said no. And the rest of the members of the family were sitting there looking at her reaction. And they were looking at me. I didn't care. It was no. How easy is that? How difficult is that? It is a no, not necessary. Okay. So I hope it makes sense. It is not rude to say no. You can say no and stick to your no. But if your no is your no and your yes is your yes, you'll make life way easier. But if your no comes with excuses, with explanations for reasons, then it's going to be a nightmare. Just say no. Can you say no with your actions instead of your words? Absolutely. It's the best way to say no because they speak louder than words. So if people don't want to listen, and it's again, I think Sadhguru said that if he says you have a person in your space that's very annoying and you can't help it and they struggle, first you try love, but then you try compassion. If love and compassion doesn't work, then you try distance. And I'm like, woo, coming from the guru, that's awesome. Distance. Right. So it's important to understand those three things when you do this. Okay. I hope that makes sense. Right. I just want to see, are there any questions? No, there's no questions here yet. So when we practice saying no, please go out and practice it. Practice it with anybody and with everybody and just go, no. Yeah, even if you just want to spend the whole day, make it your no day. Don't make it a yes day. And that movie definitely was amazing. I think it's called Yes Man. You want to see what happens when you say yes the whole time? I think it's called Yes Man, the movie. That's quite funny because that's specifically what this topic is about. And somebody mentioned, I don't know who was it, someone in the group told me that they failed at boundaries. I would actually wonder what that looks like if you fail at boundaries, because what does that mean? Does it mean the person didn't respect your boundaries? Does it mean the person kept on with what they were doing in? So there's no failing at boundaries. There's only practicing and feedback. Okay, you can't fail at boundaries because you've never set them in place before. If you're a people pleaser and people can't say no, right, then you have to stick to it. Okay. Rina, it means you didn't stick to it. Didn't stick to what? What does it mean you didn't stick to it? You must elaborate. Okay, I was saying a lot of things and it means you didn't stick to it. Okay, but practice makes perfect. Saying thank you, but no thank you. Okay, failing at boundaries means you didn't stick to it. Yes. Okay, it's exactly right. It's just training, 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 and practicing, practicing, practice. And it's amazing how people get offended when you start to set your boundaries. But boundaries, the nicest explanation I've ever heard about boundaries is two people. If I set boundaries, then I'm able to love you and myself in the same space. That is nice. I like that about boundaries. That's what it means. I'm able to love myself and you in the same space. I thought, wow, that's a nice explanation of boundaries. It's not a fear-based thing. It's not a revenge thing. It's not a malicious thing. Okay. It's just if you have self-respect, that's what you want to do. And that's what we want to try and achieve with boundaries and with saying no. Okay. Awesome. Anybody, any questions? Somebody's typing. Okay. So while they are typing, if you have to think in your life, the people who are currently pressing you with boundaries, who would that be? And it's an interesting question to ask because it's usually the people closest to you. Strangers don't push your boundaries because they don't have access. Okay. And it's nice to go and say, okay, but who in my current space or my current circle is not respecting boundaries? What does that look like? Is that a physical boundary? Is that a mental boundary? Is that a financial boundary? Is that an energetic boundary? It's nice to ask those questions. Okay. Let's see. Took your advice in boundaries and a lot of negative energies in my space remove themselves like trash taking it out by itself. My energy space is a lot clearer, but it causes a child to suffer because of it. Yep. It is fair. That child is going to learn because the examples you use with boundaries is what she's going to use in future. Okay. No growth happens without suffering. Sorry. Okay. So the child is suffering because of the boundaries is fine, but then you explain to the child, but this is what we do. This is how I handle this. This is the repercussion. This is what it needs to lead to. And this is what I want you to learn. That's it. Okay. Because unfortunately, our growth and suffering will never be separate, ever. Not on this bloody planet, in any case. This freaking reality. Okay. I hope that makes sense. All right. And watch your children, or just watch children in general. They have an automatic thing, but apparently I had it a lot. I can't remember that. But I used to tell people straight, leave me alone, you're bothering me. And I was just this big. And I'm like, it started when I was very young. My sister likes to share that story. The Dominee actually came to the house one day, did a house visit now already. I'm like pointing with a finger. Told him, leave me alone, you're bothering me. to the horror of the family. But anyway, so children have this unique ability to actually sense that and want to be alone. And then the parents say, oh no, you must kiss your auntie on the cheek because it's rude, or you must do this, or you must be in that person's space, or you must give that person a hug. If they don't want to, they don't want to. Damn it. We don't want to hug everybody. Unless you're not energetically aware, then you might want to hug everybody. But if you're energetically aware, you do not want to hug everybody. It's not a thing that happens. Okay, so please just check if you have children that you don't force them to do things in that space. All right. Awesome. Well, this half an hour went quickly. So excellent, guys. If there are no questions, you're welcome to type a question or two if you wish. But I hope this makes sense. So when is boundaries necessary? So boundaries are necessary when you start to realize they are necessary when your energy is being drained, when your mental space is being affected. Okay. And it is ironic. I've seen people in family dynamics where the children have to drink and take substances because they can't handle the family pressure. But they're not even realizing that it's the family causes. So boundaries are necessary when you start to feel drained, when your mental capacity starts to get affected. And that's why you have to be sensitive and say yes to yourself sometimes, so you know what's like. You only get feedback from your body, and your body will tell you. But most people are so out of tune with their body that their bodies don't even tell them. Okay, so it takes practice as well. I hope that answers the question. Right. And it's ironic because we all create boundaries. You have a house, you have doors, you have fence. You get in your car, you've got closed doors, closed windows. You wear clothes. It's like we create these boundaries, but then we forget to apply it in social structures and with people we love. Okay, and how do you know what boundaries is right one? How do you know? Let me just read. There's something missing here. Is the right one you feel conflicted? Oh, okay. So the right one or the wrong one? Nobody in life can actually know 100% that they're making the right decision or not. Doesn't happen. Okay, you can be 120% sure of a decision, but how that plays out sometimes is not the right decision, or it might have been. Okay, so people want to very, 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 very often make a decision that is right. I'm like, how do you know it's right? No, I just feel it. Okay, so your feelings based, or so your decision making is based on feelings. Okay, it's a bit of a bummer if it's based on feelings alone. Feelings, repercussions, actions, asking about it in your mind and playing it off, how it would play off. So a good way to say whether boundary is right or not, if you establish the boundary. Let's take a spatial boundary, for instance. If people are not just allowed to show up at your house anymore, if they did, and you send out a message, listen, before you come to my house, you need to let me know. I'll set a time and date. You can't just rock up. Okay? Then they'll freak out. And then you go, okay, but if they freak out, what's going to be the repercussions? Will they force themselves into my house? Will they respect it? Will they be upset? What if I make this boundary for a month and see if it happens? So you have to see what the repercussions of the boundaries is. And once you know the ins and outs of the negatives and the positives of the repercussions of the boundary, then you can make your decision. But once you make the decision, stick to it. If you turn your decision around on a boundary, ouch, then you are fighting a losing battle. Okay. So knowing what the right boundary is comes with practice as well. But it comes with practice if you realize there are many different levels to boundaries. It's not just physical, it's energetical, mental, time. And time is the most valuable thing we all have, but we give it away so freely. Okay, people don't like to sit alone or be alone, but time is like, "Ugh!" It's like, okay, but wait a minute. Time is an important thing. It's the only thing you have. Right. Good. I hope that made sense. I hope there's something you can take out of boundaries and saying no. And if you know a people pleaser, or if you are a people pleaser, Go and sit and ask, okay, but what would be the repercussions of saying no? Is it the rejection? Is it the conflict it's going to cause? What is it that you're trying to avoid by saying yes to everybody? And what in yourself is lacking that you cannot say yes to yourself? Okay. It's a good road to start to follow. Not an easy one, but a worthwhile one. Awesome. Excellent, guys. Right. Thank you for joining me this evening.